New set of representatives preparing to be sworn in next week in Madison, and state Republicans facing one of the smallest majorities they have ever had. To tell us about their plans for the new year, here's CBS 58's Emilee Fannon and WisPolitics editor J.R. Ross.
This week is going to be a show looking ahead to next week, as Monday marks Inauguration Day here at the state capitol, which is largely a procedural ceremony of swearing in new members. But we have, of course, a very different makeup of the legislature this year. It'll be the first time Assembly Speaker Robin Vos will be working with the smallest majorities he's ever had in the Assembly. Meanwhile, much tighter majorities as well in the state Senate for Republicans, an 18-15 split. So that will also be something to watch for. But looking at Inauguration Day specifically, JR, what are you looking for of what could happen on that day as well? Well,
will there be any drama about the vote for Speaker? So there's a formal vote on Inauguration Day in the Assembly on who should be the Speaker of the Assembly. Some Republicans selected Robin Vos to be their leader. He still has 50 votes on the floor. It's a 54-45 split for Republicans right now. So in theory, people believe he's going to be okay. But, you know, you always watch for some drama, somebody who's going to vote no in protest for some reason. Robin Vos has at times had issues with the base of the Republican Party in Wisconsin. Some aren't very big fans of his after being Speaker for longer than anybody else in Wisconsin history. So maybe that, but there'll be lots of talk about a new tone. We'll see when rubber meets the road, like there's actually a different approach to how things are legislated in Wisconsin after inauguration.
Right, because we've sat down with many legislative leaders over the past few weeks entering into the holidays. And yes, of course, every year it seems like what we hear from leadership is like, we want a fresh start. We, of course, always want to aim for more compromise, but we know there's always politics in this building. And I think the biggest question heading into the new year is, what are they going to do with this $4 billion state surplus? We've talked about this before. Republicans are really big on taxes. Meanwhile, Democrats would like to see more investments in education. But is this the year of another big compromise year after they got a lot of big ticket items done last year? You had the Brewers Stadium funding bill. You had shared revenue pumping in more money into local governments. What is that big ticket item? And I think it remains to be seen.
The battle line so far suggests they are not really looking for compromise just yet. They're laying on markers what they want to do. We've heard Robin Vos, Assembly Speaker, he wants to pass a tax cut bill first before the budget is even taken up to see like what governors will sign. People I talked to are skeptical the governor's going to commit to a number before he put in context his entire budget, so watch that fight. Some things we probably will get done right away. There's a constitutional amendment that has to pass the second time with the legislature that would put voter ID in Wisconsin's constitution. Republicans want to get that done in early January so they can have on the ballot in April. Supreme Court race, obviously, control of the court is up again in April. They want to maybe drive some turnout for conservatives, give them reason to go at the polls. So that's going to be on the to-do list, but a lot of posturing initially to get through some things, then we kind of see how they legislate going forward.
All right, and moving on to another story, because this deals with potentially seeing additional guidance to our election officials in the coming weeks after we recently found out that Madison found nearly 200 absentee ballots that were unaccounted for in the November certification of the results. So now there is an investigation after the bipartisan Wisconsin Elections Commission launched one to try and figure out why they didn't learn about this, which was only 2 weeks ago. The ballots were found on November 12th. There's just a lot of questions to figure out what went wrong and how do we prevent this in the future. And that's something that we could possibly see in the coming weeks, because like you mentioned, we got a spring February primary coming up in about 6 weeks, and they want to make sure something like this, missing ballots, unaccounted ballots, doesn't happen again.
Yeah, look, we have perhaps the most decentralized system for elections in the country. 1,800 local clerks essentially run their own elections. Human error is involved in every election I've covered. There are mistakes, but when you make a mistake, the commission wants you to fess up to it. The first ballot of an unopened ballot bag of absentee ballots was found November 12th. Nobody said anything in the Elections Commission until like in December. And so the commission is, one, somewhat upset like this wasn't brought up earlier, and two, they want an investigation to find out what happened and why, but not to like assign blame or to punish somebody, but to ensure it doesn't happen again. Marge Bostelman is a Republican appointee on the commission, a former clerk. During the meeting this week, she said, look, let's not talk about, punishment. Let's talk about how do we fix this going forward so it doesn't happen again, because election in April, February the primary first, then April, control of the Supreme Court, a lot of attention on Wisconsin once again. You don't want big mistakes in big elections.
All right. And also another story that we just want to recap real quick is a top Democrat. We're talking about Ben Wickler. He's the current chair of the Democratic Party here in Wisconsin. He received a big endorsement this week, which is from another Democratic leader, Senator Chuck Schumer in Congress. And this is all as Wickler is vying to become the next leader of the National Party, and as the party in general is looking to turn a new leaf, trying to create a new path forward after somewhat of a disappointing November. Now, Wickler is competing with 4 other individuals for this post, and there is going to be an election for the next DNC chair on February 1st.
Look, this is like the ultimate insider election. These are not normal people, not to offend anybody with the DNC or RNC, but they are like the creme de la creme of the party insiders. So about 400 some people, Wickler's trying to woo. How much weight will Schumer's endorsement have? Does that really move people? Who else is going to endorse in this race going forward? For Wisconsin, the impact is a couple of things. One, if Wickler were to leave, he'd leave right away February 1st. The question is, the state party has been a huge impact for Democratic and liberal candidates in Wisconsin. Will the party soldier on with this fundraising machine that it has for the Supreme Court race this spring? How's that going to impact things? And 2, you'd have a Wisconsin guy possibly in the national party. Never hurts when it comes to delegating resources.
Absolutely. All right, that will do it for this week. Thank you so much for joining us.